What is up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of the Garcia Show. Got my guy, Donnie Druin of Cardinals SI. Before we jump into him, talk about all his takes when it comes to the NFL draft. We got a lot of things to get to. It's the Cardinals draft extravaganza here on the Garcia Show. And who better to do it with than my guy, Donnie Druin of Cardinals on SI? Before I allow him to speak, because that's the only thing he's allowed to do, I say jump, he says how high. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, potentially even tell a friend about the Ben Garcia. So, Donnie, you are allowed to speak. How are you? It is the eve before the NFL draft. And I know I was going to feed up a different question to you first off, but I'm just not really a go by the book kind of guy.
Sure.
How stoked are you for the NFL draft? This is just something that it's like a kid opening up a Christmas present. Is that what it is for you?
Yeah, no, I've since it feels like every football fan loves the NFL draft, and deservedly so. I think it's a time for excitement, a time for drama, a time for hope. It's kind of like a big melting pot of like all of these like things and feelings that I think more than anything, Ben, it's our first taste of like the closest thing we'll get to football action since the Super Bowl, right? And for people like us who are in the industry, and for people like me who specifically covers just one team on the beat, it's like the Super Bowl for us. Like it really is, in terms of content, in terms of, like traffic, or like all of those other metrics we want to put down to it. I don't know. I feel like I'm playing a big game tomorrow. Like I feel like I'm just kind of sitting around the house waiting, kind of like I got like nerves a little bit in my stomach. It's going to be a really great time.
It's so interesting with this particular draft because it is seen as a weaker draft. But for the Cardinals, it's not really what matters. You're not really looking to get a specific position of need. What's great, if you are a firm believer of Kyler, and, I'm kind of in the middle there, is you don't need a quarterback. And I'm not advocating that they go out of their way and select one in this draft. But, let me ask you, at pick 16, whether let's don't even talk about if they trade up or if they trade back, or right now it gets to 16, the Cardinals are on the clock. Are you a best player available, or are you, forget any of that, you got to get an edge rusher, draft for need, edge rusher, maybe a tackle, cornerback position? You still don't have a linebacker, which, I mean, probably a position of premium in the NFL draft, but where are you on that landscape?
Definitely BPA guy, best player available. There's a simple but effective adage said in the NFL circle that says you can't go wrong taking good football players, and as long as you continue to add good football players to the roster, regardless of where they play, as long as you trust your scouting, you trust your grading, you trust your development of these guys, because people forget the draft isn't won or lost in 1 year. You are taking guys to not only help the rookie season, but for years down the road as well. So if you can get these guys to be where they could be potential wise instead of just where they at right now, regardless of what position you draft, you're probably going to have a good football team the better players you add. Now, does it help the Cardinals BPA also kind of coincides with positions of need? Spots like defensive end, spots like defensive line, edge rusher, maybe even corner, one could argue, along the offensive line too. Yeah, it certainly does help, but I think the Cardinals did a good enough job in free agency, Ben, to where they don't feel pressed to add a defensive lineman. They don't feel pressed to add a corner. They Monty Ossenfort told us at the NFL Combine, shout out, that they felt like they wanted to be able to play an NFL game after free agency. I do think they hit that goal, and now it's just kind of adding to the riches, for lack of a better term.
We're kind of getting thrown for a loop here when it comes to the NFL draft for the Cardinals, because for the longest time it was, which is why when people say things like this, you got to draft an edge rusher, it's, well, free agency comes first. You go through free agency, you solidify some of the needs. I would say that this is literally, and I mean this in a good way, because it was the worst way possible last year for the pass rushing position. Last year it was, oh my God, this is absolutely the worst pass rushing front potentially in the NFL, but easily in the bottom five. It's not even close. It's like 50 feet of crap, and then you have the Arizona Cardinals. I believe that this is as average of a pass rusher can get. But the difference of that is, if they had these guys on the defensive line last year, I think they make the playoffs. That's how bad it was. So you're saying that they're 30th all the way up to 16th, 17th, 18th at this point. With that being said, I think there's a lot of doubles, in terms, using a baseball term, in terms of pass rushers in this draft. I don't know if there's a lot of home run guys outside of one dude who I'll talk about in just a second as well, but Where are you leaning? Is there a perfect co-signing way of like, there's an edge rusher right here that the Cardinals would like, that they would need. He's going to fall to 16. Or are you still kind of thrown for a loop here? For a while, I was all on the Will Johnson train. Now the injury bug is starting to worry everyone, which I think feels a little bit like a smokescreen. And now this morning, Peter Schrager, who's really dialed in, has got Barron from the Texas cornerback, who I don't know a ton about.
Yeah.
And so you're like, where are you at right now? Is there a specific guy or a specific position that you're like, we got to hit here in the first round? Everything else is a premium luxury position.
You know, that's so hard just because at 16, like you really have to let the board fall to you. And that playing on top of the Cardinals addressing a lot of their needs in free agency, not feeling pressed to target one specific player or position, like the door really is open for multiple avenues. I think a guy like Will Johnson prior to the medicals would have kind of been that slam dunk pick. Honestly, I don't know if I buy a lot of it because, like you said, it is smokescreen season. It's now is the time for NFL GMs to lie out of their teeth. The NFL GM, scouts, front offices, whoever possibly can get involved to fit whatever agenda they want to have happen tomorrow night through Saturday, like afternoon, morning. They're going to do it. Now, there is some truth. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? But you're seeing it with a lot of guys the Cardinals have been connected to, Ben. Will Johnson, Derek Harmon. There were some concerns, I believe, about like Jahad Campbell, I believe. So a lot of the guys the Cardinals were kind of circled for at 16, or maybe even if they traded back a couple of spots, all of a sudden it's well, we don't really know about the medicals. They could slip, right? Johnson fits in that category for me. Derek Harmon fits in that category for me. The Cardinals really value interior pass rush, and I think Harmon kind of provides that best out of the guys who could be available there at 16. Any of the pass rushers there could do. I just think as long as you add to the room, regardless of what they look like, they could probably benefit from playing under a guy like Jonathan Gannon or Nick Rallis. But Johnson and Harmon are the two names that kind of pop out to me to where like they make the most sense there at 16 or maybe even a couple spots after.
People who watch this show, which is just millions, Donnie, know where I'm at. I am on the Will Johnson train, and I am very much on the best player available train like we talked about a second ago, because you will never go wrong compiling a team of just good football players. And for the longest time, that's where I felt like the Cardinals were over the past couple of seasons. It was like, stop worrying about position. Just go get the best football player available. And I thought you did see Monty Austin-Fort do that. And it's really nice to be able to go into this draft and not have to worry about the big bad man, Steve Keim. You know, just it's the joke is take an off-ball linebacker from a school you've never heard of, but it was true. It's what happened. And you have Monty Austin-Fort just hitting double after double after double. Wouldn't necessarily say he's hit any home runs, but you don't have to if you keep getting on base. That's where I kind of see it with the Cardinals' perspective. Do you have a favorite pass rusher? Forget what the Cardinals like, interior pressure, and I get that as well. If there's a guy that you really like, and I'm going to be honest with you, because of where the Cardinals went in free agency, filling in the interior line of Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson, and you and I were at training camp, Darius Robinson was awesome. I'm not going to just say this guy, was a bust because he was played 6 games last year and he had an injury and started to look good towards the end of it. But is there a guy that you really like, probably specifically on the line? Because I know that's what my listeners and people who follow the Cardinals want to see. That you're like, that guy, I want him.
I think interior Harmon, like I said, Kenneth Grant would be really good too, but he's more kind of just that like big athletic run stuffer, which the Cardinals could definitely use. Like I think if the pick is Kenneth Grant, fans should be very, very excited because he's a dude who can really help dictate the line of scrimmage and kind of create havoc from there. In terms of edge rushers, though, the character concerns are definitely something to take note of, but in terms of just on-field talent, Mike Green from Marshall, I think would be just in terms of football acumen, probably one of the better picks they can make. But does he make it there? Is that a guy they want to bring into history? Like there's a lot of variables that the Cardinals have to do. Now, granted, like they have shown the ability to maybe look over some character insights. We saw that last year with Zay Jones, like them signing him knowing he had a suspension coming up. But it's also a very different thing when you're signing a veteran receiver compared to taking a guy in the first round and committing him to at least 4 years.
How much do you buy? Kind of 10 good minutes there, kind of deciphering what kind of guys you like. But let's talk about potential, what the Cardinals can do. How much do you buy the Cardinals trading back from pick 16 and accumulating picks? They've got, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's 6 picks in this draft. Yep. That's not a lot, like at all. Maybe Monty, who has been a little bit conservative, and he's built a pretty good team doing so. So I can't get upset with him too hard. But how much do you buy them moving back in this draft to a 22, to a 25, or because they feel like they can get their guy there and accumulate picks? Do you think we see that, or really any movement at all?
I do. I absolutely buy it. Now, whether or not they'll ultimately do it, whether or not a guy like Will Johnson falls at 16 and they have Pittsburgh at 21 or Green Bay, I think at like 23 or 24, calling them, trying to move up for somebody. And they have to kind of weigh that factor of, hey, like, do we still think we can get our guy here a couple picks later in exchange for picking up like an extra third or a fifth or like something like that? That'll just all depend on their like draft trade chart, and when the bullets are flying, whenever they're on the clock at 16. I absolutely buy that Monty Austin-Fort does want to trade back though, because like you said, he only has 6 picks, which, like, granted, that's like the lone pick they're missing is from like day 3. It's like the 6th or the 7th round. The pick they sent Denver for the Baron Browning trade.
Yeah.
So that the you're right. The one pick they're missing isn't catastrophic. It's not like a draft altering pick that they don't have, but Monty Austin-Fort, I think more than anything through the 2-year sample size we have of him, Ben, is that he likes more swings at the bat. He's definitely one of those guys that will absolutely take more draft ammo to potentially hit on one of those guys, whether it be the 2nd or the 3rd round. We've seen him move back on day 1. We've seen him move back on day 2. You're seeing a lot of stuff from a lot of national people about this not being quite the draft where teams want to move up and want to trade, but like it's really anybody's guess. I mean, perfect example yesterday, Ben, 2 different NFL GMs. Ryan Poles says, hey, like, like, we'll see what this draft is. There could be a lot of trades. And then I think it might've been the Jaguars GM who was like, yeah, like this could be a draft where there's no trades at all. So a lot of opinions, a lot of different avenues that can be taken. I do think they're going to field a lot of calls at 16. I do think Monty Austin-Fort wants to trade back and get more draft ammo. And the good part is that this draft is deep in the trenches and considerably top deep at edge rusher. Those are positions that they seem to like a lot. They seem to covet, at least early on in the draft. If they trust their board, if they trust their scouting, which is something that the Cardinals have shown that they have done under Monty Austin-Fort in the last couple of years, I absolutely buy they're going to move back.
Do you think they will? Like, if you had to just say, like, it's always a better chance, because just for my audience, it's always a better chance they stick and pick. Like, it's hard to make a trade, whether you're moving back or whether you're moving forward, because it's timed. You're not necessarily sure what's going on with the other team. You're trying to play gotcha in 5 minutes of trying to do the art of the deal. It's obviously more likely that they stick and pick, but give me a percentage that they move back in this draft that you would think, because when you say you wouldn't surprise you, I'm thinking 30%. Anything other than that does kind of feel like a bit of a surprise to me. 70% they stick and pick, still overwhelmingly favored.
Yeah.
30% they go back. Where are you on that? And then I want to talk about trading up.
I'm still 50-50 on that. Like, it really is a coin flip to me.
Oh, wow.
It really is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
I think it'll depend on who's there at 16, and then it'll depend on whether or not they think the package offered by any of the teams behind them in the 20s is significant enough to potentially bypass that. And then also a third thing, which I alluded to a little bit earlier, do they like their board enough to move back a couple spots and feel comfortable still taking one of those guys that may or may not be there? So to me, it's a coin flip.
Let's talk about trading up really quickly. There's one guy that I would trade up for, and I'm going to set myself up for failure here, but that's what I do. I like to take big swings. If there was one guy in this draft, Donnie, one dude that you were like, not realistic, we're living in fantasy land for a second.
Sure.
You'd say, I want that guy on the Cardinals. That one player, he would change everything. Who is it?
Abdul Carter.
And then I'll tell you, who is it?
Abdul Carter.
Okay. I didn't set myself up for failure there. I'm with you. If there's one guy that changes everything for the Cardinals, then you're talking about Abdul Carter, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Josh Sweat. And like I can actually name the guys on the defensive line where last year I'm thinking these are 3-star recruits who are Make-A-Wish kids playing from high school to the pros last year. If you're Monty Ossenfort and that guy can change everything, and you saw yesterday, teams are taking calls. The Giants and the Browns taking calls, which just so we're clear, I think it's crazy that the Browns and the Giants aren't just drafting Abdul Carter, especially if you don't like the quarterbacks. I don't get the Travis Hunter thing a ton. I'm sure he's very, obviously high grade, good player, but pass rusher is just a position of premium. If you're the Cardinals, why aren't you doing legitimately everything you can to move up and take that player? Even if it means, look at the Vikings. They got like 3 picks this year. I think it's 4. Like, who cares? If you get the player you want that can change everything, who I think is going to be a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL at some point, why aren't you moving up to go get that guy? That's where I'm at with it. Where do you sit on that?
Well, it does take 2 to tango, and like you had already pointed out, like they are fielding calls at picks 2 and 3. What I will say is that if you're the Giants at number 3, you had Abdul Carter in 5 times this pre-draft process, and like I don't think you're getting to know that young man that many times and spending that much time with him if you're not serious about wanting to bring him in, especially with them also kind of needing that caliber of player who can help change the franchise's trajectory around. Yeah, and so with that being said, I'm sure the Cardinals have picked up the phone, but to move from 16 to 3, that's going to take a lot. What
do you think it would take?
You're talking like a first this year, a first next year, and like probably a collection of maybe a really good young player and like a mixture of like a second or like third round picks, if I had to guess off the top of my head. But you also have to convince the Giants that, hey, like you have to drop over 10 spots. You have to go from number 3 to 16. The pool of talent is considerably less picking in those 2 spots. So I think if you're the Cardinals, it might be a little bit too rich to try to give up all of that. And if you're the Giants, it's like, hey, we have Abdul Carter in our hands. Do we want to drop that far? Do we want to go to the middle of the draft order?
Well, let's say that Monty, you and I all value Abdul Carter the same. And I think he's going to be a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. I mean, heck, there was talks of Myles Garrett going for 2 first-round picks in the offseason. And if you were going to spend 2 first-round picks, allegedly, we don't even know if the Cardinals made that phone call, on Myles Garrett, who's 29, 30 years old, why wouldn't you just go get your own Myles Garrett at 21 years old? My point is just this, man. You're going from one of the worst collection of talent on the defensive line to, I mean, you're talking about a top 5 pass rush when you have all these guys on this line. And if you are Monty and JG, no, I'm not saying they're going to get fired this year, but I'm saying year 3 for any head coach GM tandem is a make or break year in some way. And if you're worried about potentially what Michael Bidwell's trigger finger could do, and you think adding Abdul Carter would get you in the playoffs this year and buy you more time, why wouldn't you do it? Like, I get the Capitals a lot, but why wouldn't you do it? I know it's 2 first-round picks, but it's not like you're going up and getting a quarterback. You're getting a position of need. So that would be my argument for it. It's just like, I like the guy, but why not? Final thoughts on Abdul Carter?
A phenomenal prospect. I think I agree with a lot of what you said. I just think it comes down to Ossenfort not wanting to put all of that eggs in just one basket. And that's not a knock on Abdul Carter. That's a, hey, like if we don't pan out, we might need to make some changes, especially at the quarterback position next year. We kind of might need our first round pick to do that if we're serious about doing it.
You know, that frustrates me because that's a really good argument. And that was the argument I was hoping you wouldn't make, because that's kind of where I was at with it. Is like, if there is one person that you're worried about next year that you might have to use that first round pick on, it is Kyler. And I understand Kyler is a polarizing figure, and let's move. It's a perfect transition to the quarterback position. I was so pro Kyler Murray, and you know my type of style of broadcasting, man, of opinions. I'm going to swing for the fences. And sometimes Kevin Durant's going to call me a clown. And sometimes, and not sometimes, Kyler Murray's got me blocked on all social media platforms. Whatever. I was very pro Kyler, but I can't hide behind the proof forever. It's going to be year 8. Any chance of him ever being a top 7 guy, it's just not happening, Donnie. So Kyler could figure it out this year and be a top 8 guy, be very good, MVP candidate. Cam Newton won an MVP one time. I don't think he was ever a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Shedeur Sanders falls to 16. I think I've been the loudest advocate of like, listen, man, if he's at 16, I'm not saying draft the guy, but just have the damn conversation. That's where I'm at with it. Even if it's not Shedeur. And I'll talk about another quarterback prospect I like either. Would you touch any of these quarterbacks with a 10-foot pole? Of course, given where they're selected. Or do you have that much faith in Kyler that he's just going to pull it out this year?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think it was not a mistake a couple weeks ago, whenever Adam Schefter went on his podcast and listed the Cardinals as a sleeper for Shedeur Sanders. And he said, look, like this isn't going to happen, but I would not be 100% shocked if this happened. And if you just look at it from a black and white perspective, it makes sense, right? Like you have Kyler Murray, a quarterback who has been very, very high, has been very, very low, hasn't really found that level of like top consistency that the Cardinals have wanted to see from him. Like you said, he's going to year 8. You talked a lot about the year 3 make or break for Monty and JG. This is very much a make or break year for Kyler Murray because like you, I'm a big Kyler guy. I like a lot of what he brings to the table, but after last year, after the way the second half of the season ended, where he threw the 8 picks in 7 games or something like that, I said on my own podcast, look, like I'm open to conversations. I am now going to open the door. I'm not hating on Kyler. I still think he can be the guy, but I will listen. I will entertain conversations now, right? It's not a crazy thought to draft a quarterback and bring in a guy like Shedeur, sit for a year, and then either Kyler balls out and you're like, you know what, we can flip Shedeur for something, or Kyler isn't the guy. It's like, okay, well, like now we have Shedeur, who a lot of people are very polarizing. For as much as Kyler's polarizing here in the desert, Shedeur is very polarizing in his own right. So I don't think we're getting away from that if Shedeur somehow ends up in the desert. But at least you have some kind of like succession plan in place if that happens. Like that's not bad football GMing right there. But also the Cardinals are very high on Kyler Murray, both internally and whenever they're speaking to the public. The head coach, the GM, the owner, all very, very in on Kyler Murray in 2025. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, Ben, if you think you can make the playoffs in 2025, that involves Kyler Murray at the quarterback position for better or for worse. Now, we can talk about the future after the dust settles on the 2025 season, but only horse blinders on looking at this upcoming year. If you're going to make the playoffs, Kyler Murray has to be the guy.
I have my skepticisms. I want Kyler to work out. Just quick detour, and I always get sidetracked with this, and I've gotten in a lot of trouble on social media for this. And again, I just simply don't care. But I like Kyler. My life gets so much better if Kyler Murray is the franchise quarterback, is the top 10 guy. Why in the hell would I be rooting for him to fail? For me, I relate it to wanting the president to fail. Whether you feel great or worse about Donald Trump, you should be hoping he makes the best moves for America. Same thing for Kyler Murray. Whether you hate or like Kyler Murray, you should be hoping that he is going to turn into a top 5 franchise guy for forever. Because my life gets easier. I make more money. The Cardinals do well. Like, I'm rooting for him to work. It's year 8, man, and I worry about it. So, Shedeur Sanders, I have definitely cooled on it, especially, like, you want to talk about polarizing? I mean, I was going to pull up this tweet that I saw this morning. I know you saw this, but for the listeners, an NFL assistant coach on Shedeur Sanders said, the worst formal interview I've ever done in my life. He's so entitled. He takes unnecessary sacks. He never plays on time. He has a horrible body language. He blames teammates. But the biggest thing is he's not that good. Holy. It's like an ex-girlfriend talking about me, Donnie. Like, it's just.
The wild thing, Ben, is that like you can pull 32 different opinions and you're going to get 32 different answers on a guy like Shedeur Sanders. That's just kind of how it happens.
I have cooled on Shedeur because of all the backlash. And to be fair, I was the same. before any of this started, before I thought he could fall to 16, this was very early in the draft process. When he showed up to the draft combine, not like it is what it is, man. You show up to a job interview, and that's what the NFL draft combine is. Look the part. Maybe don't have your hat on backwards, as he says, with his hat on backwards. Maybe just look ready to present and be humble. And what I took from that was you can't do that, man. That's bad judgment. And so those are the kind of things that have made me cool on Shedeur. But is there a guy that you'd want to take late? If Jackson Dart falls to the third round, maybe. I really like Riley Leonard. Leonard. And I think he falls fourth or fifth round. That's a guy with the big arm. You saw what he did in the playoffs. He was good, mature, asked to do like exactly what Brock Purdy did in the NFL. Don't screw it up. I think big arm, mobile, those kind of things are interesting to me. I think he is project like Josh Allen in terms Josh Allen was not the same quarterback he was coming into the NFL. But that's a guy there that I think you wouldn't be caught flat-footed if Kyler Murray doesn't work out. You have something that you can look into. And then if it doesn't work out, whatever. But, forget Riley Leonard, forget Jackson Dart. Is there someone you like?
Ooh, if we're kind of testing the waters of, hey, like, let's get a guy, and if for the future we don't have Kyler, maybe we can kind of hang our hat on him. Will Howard might be a name to watch on day 2. Same measurables as Josh Allen. He is fairly mobile. He has a lot of like ball playing experience. I think he's a guy who you definitely want to stash. I don't think you should start him right away, but like if you can kind of get his feet cemented in the ground, I think he could be a fairly okay quarterback. But the problem, Ben, is how are you going to go from Kyler Murray, who has so much potential, who has the ceiling is almost as high as anybody in the league. It'll be really tough to go from that to like a day 2 quarterback pick. In terms of like, if we're trying to win a Super Bowl, if we're trying to make the playoffs, if we're going to go from Kyler to this guy, like how significant is that drop? And then you look at the players we're talking about, like Jackson Dart, like Riley Leonard, like Will Howard. What's the ceiling? Because you're not drafting guys for what they are. You're drafting guys for what they can be. What are their ceilings? And is that higher than Kyler Murray? If not, what are we doing? Now, granted, if you want to look just a little bit past this cycle, the 26 quarterback class is considered to be pretty rich and pretty deep. Obviously, there's 365 days until we find out exactly what those guys are, what they can be at the next level. But if you're kind of projecting for the Cardinals at the quarterback position, Shedeur, little too rich, little too early for my favorite. I would get it. I would understand. I wouldn't love it, but I would get it. And then any of the other guys like Jackson Dart, I think is going to go earlier than people think. Then you're kind of getting into like the Will Howard, the Riley Leonard, the like Tyler Show, the Kyle McCord pool. Is that enticing? Is that enough? And let's not forget, like the Cardinals signed Jacoby Brissett too. Like, granted, that's a Band-Aid for the offseason, but like they do have a plan in 2025 if Kyler goes down, if Kyler gets hurt, or if he just doesn't play well.
I told you I'd only take 30 minutes of your time. It's probably going to end up being 35 minutes at this point because there are some, I call these guys, and I talked about it yesterday on the show that I stream every morning, 7 a.m., but didn't do that this morning because I just wanted to save all the rich time for you. But I have some guys who I call the supplemental big 3. The guys that if I can get 2 out of these 3 guys late in the draft, and these are my not hidden gems, but guys I really like that you can build a team around who could fall to your picks later in the NFL draft. Jack Sawyer, a guy that's, it might be Johnny Venerable's best man at his, at his wedding. He loves that guy so much. I do too, but he's coined that, so that's not fair. I've sang the praises for Cam Scattaboo, and let's just throw more Arizona media members under the bus. My guy Alex Clancy, he'd have a cow if that happened. And then of course Riley Leonard. He's that third guy that I really like, and I think that's collectively the Arizona Cardinals fan base. Half of them would just be distraught if you drafted a quarterback. Do you have guys, maybe they're the same guys I've pointed out, that you're like later in this draft, wide receiver, cornerback, just dudes that you're seeing, oh, those are hidden gems I really like? Who would that be and why?
Ooh, okay. I think his name is Kyle Williams. He's the big,
Wide
tall slot
receiver.
receiver. Yep,
Yeah.
out of Washington State. Really, really big fan of him. I think he kind of fits exactly what the Cardinals need as a guy who can like take the top off of a defense and really open things up because the Cardinals really don't have that deep like play threat. They really they tried to
Mhm.
make Marvin Harrison Jr. that during his rookie season, but I think they quickly found out just because he's 6'4" doesn't mean he's a 50-50 guy. He doesn't have top end speed to beat any corner. Michael Wilson is very much kind of the opposite of that, and it's not a knock towards Michael Wilson. Wilson is a very, very good contested catch guy. I trust him a lot. He's a really nice go-to guy if you need a third down to keep the chains moving. Greg Dortch is very quick. He's very shifty, but there's nobody in that receivers room right now who you can just send down the field and he's going to beat man coverage every single time. There's not that kind of guy in that room, and I think that Williams kid out of Washington State fits that mold perfectly.
When was the last time the Cardinals had that guy?
I'd say like
Is
John
it
Brown.
John? Is it John Brown? I was just gonna
I'd say
say, is it
John
John
Brown,
Brown?
but like even DeAndre Hopkins, though he wasn't the fastest guy in the room, like
Yeah.
you knew if you put the ball to DeAndre 30 yards down the field, he's coming down with it because it's
Yeah.
DeAndre F word Hopkins.
I've grown fond of Kyle Williams because he's really twitchy too. I think that's a guy who, if Cliff Kingsbury had, he would just lose it being able to throw balls behind the line of scrimmage for him. Rondale Moore was never that guy. Greg Dortch, clearly he doesn't have the top end speed to take that guy. I think it has been nearly a decade since the Cardinals have had that guy, the guy that's clearly you're not number one, but the Scotty Millers of the world, those types of guys that can just take the top off the defense. For the longest time, it was Ted Ginn that did this. Cardinals haven't had that guy, and you need that guy, Tyreek Hill, but that's a different level of player. Lastly, just really quickly, offensive line. You digging that early in this draft? The Cardinals taking an offensive lineman. If the Cardinals went Josh Simmons at 16, would you lose your brain cells?
No, I wouldn't. But like, what's interesting to me, I put this out on Twitter, Ben, is that the four offensive tackles they've had on a top 30 visit have all exclusively, for the most part, played at left tackle. The Cardinals have a left tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. Am I missing something? And what's going on now? Now, granted, I did do a little bit of research after I'd put that out. Paris Johnson never played right tackle during his college football career, at least as a starter. And then they put him at right tackle his rookie season. So I think the report
and he was
Josh
awesome. Just to be fair,
yeah, he was very, very good at right tackle. I was one of the few people who was like, "Hey, he played good at right tackle. Like, let's keep him there. Let's make sure, because I think the blindside thing is kind of just not like redundant nowadays. But like, you need a good right.
Everyone's
tackle
got two pass rushers.
There's good edge rushers on both sides of the ball. You just need a good tackle. But I mean, the people who know more football than me put him at left tackle, and turns out he's really, really good at left tackle too. So, definitely not a bad decision. But I do think if they were to take a tackle, there would be a very good succession plan to a guy like Jonah Williams or Kelvin Beachum. They wouldn't need to start right away, which I kind of think is a good thing. And like that'll suck for fans for them to spend a first round pick on an offensive tackle and him not even see the field. But like, let's say if for the reason like he doesn't beat Jonah Williams out or like Kelvin Beachum out or whoever it might be at right tackle, that's still a plan for the future. Like you still will have two bookend tackles, which is a very, very good thing and a luxury a lot of teams in the NFL don't necessarily have. I wouldn't be opposed to like an offensive guard either, because like the long-term solution at left and right guard still kind of unclear. I know the team re-signed Evan Brown in free agency, but like he's not going to be the guy 5 years down the road. I'm not sure if they love Isaiah Adams at right guard, and then Will Hernandez hasn't been re-signed either. So who knows, man?
Yeah, the Isaiah Adams thing is interesting because everyone just assumes he's going to start, and I feel like I'm one of the only people, and I guess you now is just like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to start that guy over at right guard? If the Cardinals don't take an offensive tackle, an offensive lineman, period, in the first round, I think they have to take one in the second round. I think someone nice will fall to you in the second round, and you got to be able to do it because right now the line is fine. And it was actually in stretches like elite last season, in stretches. But if someone goes down, you're in a lot of trouble. Like it is, the depth is not great there, in my opinion. Let's say the Cardinals stick and pick. Who's the pick at 16?
Will Johnson.
And Cardinals fans rejoice. That's my guy. Now, it's not fair because, I'm not some of these big old wigs that have a bigger platform than I am, but I think they're just stealing my content. They're cheapening my brand. First, you were the one that said to me, I was saying, hey, Max Crosby, someone should go make that happen. And it turns out everyone's just doing Max Crosby stuff. And then, yesterday I'm saying, hey, why don't you trade up for Abdul Carter? Peter Schrager's listening to the show, tells me people are trading up for the 2nd and 3rd overall picks. People are cheapening my brand, Donnie. What happened?
Trendsetter. Trendsetter, bro. I'd be proud if I were you.
Some people in the comment section are going to think I'm being serious. And you know what? I kind of like that. Donnie Druin, Cardinals on SI. Thank you for joining the show, man. Appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And Donnie, I'll let you have the final word. Is there anything you want to say to the people? Can I help you out with anything? Do you need a hug? I mean, listen, is there something you need from me?
Nah, I'm good, man. I had a really great time jumping on the show today. I appreciate it. Definitely got to do this again. One last message to the people: enjoy the draft, man. This day comes once a year. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun, man.
The great thing about the NFL draft is it doesn't matter who you root for. Everyone thinks they have a chance to win a Super Bowl on the NFL draft day. And then it quickly fades away. But either way, I'm excited for it. Donnie Druin, Cardinals on SI. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for joining the show.